My name is Lieutenant Greer Winslow, U.S. Navy Logistics. I've followed rules my entire life, until the night I broke one to save a freezing child on a storm-beaten highway. I thought I was doing the right thing. Instead, I was dragged into an office at dawn, stripped of my duties, and treated like a criminal by the very people I served. They said I chose emotion over duty. But tell me, when a life is on the line, is compassion really a mistake? This is the story of how one quiet decision changed everything. Rain battered the windshield like handfuls of gravel, each strike sharp enough to rattle the frame of the truck. Headlights carved only a few yards into the darkness before being swallowed whole by the storm. 16 hours behind the wheel, my back ached, my fingers were numb around the steering wheel, and exhaustion crawled up the base of my neck like ice. Yet the convoy manifest in the glove compartment reminded me that I wasn't just tired, I was responsible. Classified cargo. No unauthorized stops, no deviations, no exceptions. Somewhere beneath the rumble of thunder, my father's voice lingered in memory, quiet, steady, the way it sounded the night before he deployed for the last time. There will be days the uniform tells you to look away. Those are the days you choose whether you're a soldier or just a shadow in one. I had rolled my eyes at the time. Tonight, I understood. Just past mile marker 41, two flickering hazard lights pulsed through the rain. At first, I thought it was debris, maybe a jackknifed car. But as I drew closer, the shape sharpened. An SUV stranded on the shoulder, hood up, water rushing around its tires. My radio crackled with static and weather updates, reminding me of the rules stamped into my training. Do not stop. Do not engage civilians during transport. I eased my boot over the accelerator. Then I saw her. A small hand pressed against the rear window, pale against the fogged glass. The faint outline of a child. No training manual had prepared me for that. My heartbeat slammed once, twice. Before I knew it, my foot left the gas and found the brake. The truck groaned as it slowed, tires hissing against the waterlogged asphalt. Wind nearly tore the door from its hinges when I stepped out. Rain soaked through my uniform in seconds, icy against my skin. The man from the SUV ran toward me, shouting over the wind that the engine had died. No phone signal. His daughter was freezing. I didn't answer. I just grabbed the tow chains from the toolbox, my dog tags clinking against the old brass compass in my breast pocket. My father's. Hooking their SUV to my truck felt like committing a crime in plain sight. Every second, I expected to hear my radio flare to life with the superior barking orders, but only the storm answered. 40 wet, slow minutes later, the glowing sign of a roadside motel cut through the mist. I unhooked the chains. He approached me again, rain streaming down his face, gratitude raw in his voice. I don't know how to thank you. What's your name? I hesitated, then answered, Lieutenant Greer Winslow. He looked at me as if memorizing it. I won't forget that. I wished I could forget it. I turned back to the truck, water squelching in my boots, and drove into what remained of the night. No radio transmissions, no alarms, just the quiet knowledge that I had broken a rule the Navy did not forgive. As I rolled past the base gates at dawn, soaked to the bone, the guard handed me an envelope. Report to Captain Calder Pike, 0700 sharp. My uniform wasn't dry yet, but my fate was. Your uniform is still wet, Lieutenant? Captain Pike asked without looking up. It won't matter. You won't be wearing it much longer. The words landed like a billy club. His desk was a wall of polished wood and brass, metals arranged with mathematical patience, a framed motto that read, Order, Duty, Precision, behind his head. The rain smeared the windows into watercolor bands. Outside, the bass moved in a slow, indifferent rhythm. Inside, the room smelled faintly of burnt coffee and authority. I should have saluted. Habit almost made me. Instead, I kept my chin level and let my hands rest at my sides. My uniform was heavy with water. The compass in my pocket felt like a hot coal against my ribs. Captain Pike pushed a single sheet of paper toward me. 2 lines in bold that would hang on the bulletin board by noon. Disobedience of Standing Order 7A. He read the formalities the way someone reads the weather. Factual, unembellished. You jeopardized classified cargo, he said. You endangered a mission. He didn't look at the little girl's fist pressed to a window, didn't hear the man's gratitude, didn't register the smell of diesel and motel coffee that would follow me into my sleep. All he saw was a blip on a ledger. All he needed was a precedent. There are ways of punishing that cut deeper than paper. Pike knew them. He spoke of consistency, of discipline, of the slippery slope of sentiment. He spoke like a man who had practiced this sermon for other officers who had the misfortune of confusing empathy with insubordination. When he told me to expect administrative reassignment, inventory, spreadsheets, counting fuel pallets, I saw the air leave the room. Desk duty was exile disguised as duty. No convoys, no field missions, no purpose but numbers. Lieutenant Bryce Latimer was waiting in the doorway, a smug shadow at the edge of the light. He clapped once, quiet, performative, and offered the kind of smile that had given me more scars than either storm. "Next time you want to save the world," he said, loud enough for the office clerk in the hall to hear, "at least wait till you're off duty." The sentence was meant to be a joke. It sounded like an indictment. They pinned my name to the bulletin board that afternoon. The title, Failure of Protocol, sat above it like a verdict. I walked the logistics floor and felt the rooms tilt away. Conversations halted, chairs angled like turned backs. The computer humming in the corner became a metronome counting the seconds I had been made small. Humiliation bites in layers. First comes the public display, the whispering, then the private calculus. What have I lost? What remains? I found a quiet socket in the data room that evening and sat with a laptop on my knees, my uniform still damp, my fingers clumsy with the cold. I copied the convoy GPS, the CB logs, the motel's time-stamped footage onto a flash drive. Chief Nolan Mercer had fixed me with a look that contained memory of a younger man once sidelined for making the wrong choice at the wrong time, and he did not speak. He left the door ajar long enough for me to breathe and closed it on my loneliness. By bedtime, the base felt like a place that had been altered without my consent. The sky outside kept its angry rhythm. Somewhere between the data copy and the clatter of the machines, I felt the first stitch of resolve form. Evidence is a kind of armor. Words on a board can be replaced by facts in a file. Later, while I was stacking manifests in the warehouse, Chief Mercer approached me and, without ceremony, said quietly, "If you've got proof you weren't wrong, keep it. Storms don't end in silence. They reload." They thought I was finished. They mistook my silence for surrender. But silence can also mean I'm sharpening the knife. In the warehouse, the air tasted of cardboard dust and cold metal. Fluorescent tubes hummed overhead like gnats that never landed. I moved along the aisles with a tablet and a scanner, ticking off crates as if they were days on a calendar. People who used to nod now studied clipboards that didn't need studying. When Bryce drifted close enough to fog the edge of my patience, he let the whisper slip. "Hero complex doesn't look good on paper, Greer," and drifted away again, pleased with the bruise he didn't have to own. At night, the base thinned to bones. Empty corridors, locked doors, ventilation grates sighing. The data room became my chapel. I signed in, shut the world out, and let the monitors lift their pale faces toward me. Fleet Tracker opened with a grid of roads and breadcrumb dots. October 3rd burned there in clean, indifferent numerals. Timestamps marking every turn, the 0.7-mile deviation flagged as approved for flood detour. I exported it. No adjectives, no excuses, just coordinates that didn't lie. The convoy radio archive was less generous. Static, weather advisories, dead air. Then finally the small useful thing, my handoff to the civilian CB, a brief exchange, a calm acknowledgement, cut short by thunder. I trimmed the file to the meat and saved it twice. Evidence, I reminded myself, is a lantern. You don't swing it wildly, you hold it steady so people can see. Chief Mercer stepped into the doorway with the quiet of someone who knows where floors squeak. He set a thumb-sized flash drive beside my keyboard and kept his voice level. Motel CCTV, 0047, you're not alone, but choose your battlefield wisely. There was nothing in his face that asked for thanks. I gave him a single nod anyway, and after he left, I plugged the drive in. Grainy video resolved. Rain slanting like static, my truck's headlights, a figure hooking chains in the wash of light. Not proof of heroism, proof of occurrence. Sometimes that's all the universe gives you, and it's enough. Between October 6th and the 15th, days stacked like pallets. Pike walked the floor with measured concern, asking benign questions that tasted like metal. He had the look of a man polishing glass so thoroughly he believed it would never break. The bulletin board kept my name like a specimen. I kept my head down and my eyes open. The mess hall brewed rumors faster than coffee. Word first arrived as initials, DCNO, then rank, 4-star. Then a story poured, as if it had been waiting in the pot. His daughter and granddaughter caught in that storm, a roadside close call, a motel out past Franklin where the lights flicker even when the weather is kind. Trays clattered, voices dipped. I carried mine outside and sat where the overhang dripped a steady rhythm. In memory, the man's posture returned, upright even in panic, eyes that took in information before fear. The way he repeated my name, filing it somewhere I couldn't see. The details slid into place with a sound too soft for anyone else to hear. I kept working. I wrote my statement as if a stranger would read it and hate me for any flourish. I revised it until even I believed it. I tucked the compass against my palm and felt the old brass warm with skin heat, a private metronome. I wasn't planning to make noise. I was building a bridge strong enough to walk truth across. The base at twilight looked like a map drawn in sodium light. A forklift beeped in the far bay. A tugboat on the water sounded 3 long notes that settled into my ribs. I walked the barracks hallway and counted doorways the way you count breaths when the sea gets rough. Steadying the boat you've become. Pride keeps you upright, my father used to say. Stubbornness keeps you from turning toward the current. I turned. Then my phone buzzed. New internal memo. Admiral Silas Hartwell, DCNO, will arrive at Norfolk Base. All logistics personnel must attend briefing. And suddenly, I couldn't breathe. Lieutenant Winslow, Captain Pike said in front of everyone, consider this your final lesson in what happens when feelings outrank orders. 5 minutes later, it wasn't me who learned the lesson. Command Briefing Room 3 smelled faintly of burnt coffee and dry erase marker. The map of the Atlantic Fleet stared down over our heads like a witness that had seen too much. Chairs scraped as officers settled. Coffee cups rested untouched, rings sweating pale circles onto folders. I stood at parade rest, palms calm against my seams, while Pike squared his shoulders and held my file like a flag. Negligence. Defiance of Standing Order 7A. Unfit for duty. He delivered the charges in a voice smooth enough to pass inspection. He didn't look at me. He looked through me, past me, toward the promotion board only he could see. He waited for the room to tighten around his verdict. No one obliged. Silence gathered instead, clean and hard. He clicked the pen, slid the reprimand so it kissed the edge of the table, and kept going. Statistical abstractions, the primacy of procedure, the danger of precedent. Bryce lounged behind him with a smirk he thought he'd polished into subtlety. Chief Mercer stood with his arms crossed, a storm cloud in human form, jaw set. I breathed once, slow, the way you do before water hits your face. The door opened without drama. Admiral Silas Hartwell didn't arrive so much as appear, a pressure change in the room. Conversations that might have started died in the throat. He took the far seat, set his cap on the table, and rested one hand on the file already waiting for him. When he spoke, it was quiet enough that everyone leaned forward. Lieutenant, did you stop the convoy that night? I met his eyes. Yes, sir, because a little girl was freezing to death. Pike snapped, almost grateful for a line he knew. Emotion is not an excuse for disorder. Hartwell turned his head toward him, not fast, just final. Then he looked back at me, and for a heartbeat I saw rain on a roadside, a hand on fogged glass, a man measuring his words before he used them. When he spoke again, his voice carried gravity without volume. That little girl is my granddaughter. The woman beside her was my daughter. The air left the room as if a hatch had opened. Paper didn't dare move. Bryce's smile curdled into something colorless. Pike's pen hovered above the reprimand, as though the ink had thickened. No one reached for a cup. No one remembered how to swallow. Hartwell's gaze returned to Pike and held there, steady as a horizon. You punished an officer for saving my family? Pike's mouth opened, then rearranged itself around a policy he couldn't find. Sir, the issue is not the outcome, but the violation. Standing order exists to serve life, Hartwell said, still quiet, not to punish it. He rose without haste and set his palm on the folder as if weighing it. Captain Pike, you are relieved of command. Effective immediately. There was no mutiny of sound, no scraping of chairs, only the wheeze of the air vent and the tiny crack of Bryce's composure as his face drained white. Pike's hand lowered to the table, suddenly unsure of what a table was for. The reprimand he'd prepared lay there like a broken instrument. Chief Mercer exhaled once, a sound any other day you'd mistake for a cough. I kept my spine straight. I didn't smile. I didn't move. Justice was a tide shoving off from shore, and I let it do the work. Hartwell closed my file and gathered his cap. He gave no speech, offered no consolation. He simply turned, studied me with an expression that read facts before feelings, and spoke as if announcing a departure time. Lieutenant Winslow, you're not dismissed. You're coming with me. I always thought justice sounded like a gavel hitting wood or a crowd cheering. Turns out it sounds nothing like that. It sounds like a 4-star admiral saying, Captain Pike, you are relieved of duty. Morning found me in Admiral Hartwell's office, light slanting across charts and a single framed photo of a ship nosing through fog. He signed the removal order with a pen that didn't hesitate. Pike stood rigid, eyes gone to ash, the paper stealing the last of his posture. I was following protocol, he said, as if reciting a defense issued to him by a rulebook. Protocol doesn't cover every storm, Captain. Humanity does. Hartwell didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. Security wasn't summoned, no cuffs, no spectacle. Pike walked out alone, and the door eased shut on a career that had mistaken cleanliness for courage. Hartwell slid a new folder toward me. The seal caught the light. Effective immediately, Lieutenant Winslow is reinstated and promoted to acting operations officer. My hands shook once, a tremor without fear, the way a wire sings when it's pulled taut. The reprimand was gone. In its place, my name stood without apology. Later, in the main conference room, the command staff gathered while the coffee cooled again. Hartwell spoke to the room, to the building, to the tradition that had raised us all. From this day forward, any officer who renders life-saving aid, civilian or otherwise, will not be punished if the mission remains unharmed. This is the Navy's Samaritan rule. Heads dipped, shoulders eased, even the walls seemed to exhale. A white envelope waited on my bunk that evening. Inside, Pike's handwriting, smaller than I expected. I lost my command trying to protect the system. You protected people. Maybe that's what real command is. I folded the letter once, then again, not to savor it, just to put it down. At sunrise I stood on the pier. The flag went up with a whisper of cloth. The mast pinged, and the bay lay smooth as a polished coin. Hartwell passed, paused, and said, almost in confidence, "Keep your compass true, Commander." I touched the rusted circle in my pocket, my father's, and let the salt wind fill my lungs without guilt. Because justice doesn't need to shout. It just needs someone who won't stay silent. Sometimes justice isn't loud, it's a quiet stand in the middle of a storm. If my story moved you, don't let it fade in silence. Leave a comment below. Tell me what you would have done that night, or what you would say to someone like Captain Pike, or to someone like me. If you believe compassion should never be punished, let your voice be counted. Share this story so more people remember that rules may guide us, but humanity must lead us. And if life ever puts you at a crossroads, listen to your compass, even if it points against the crowd.